Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and today we're taking a look at the Mythical Island metagame only a few days in now at this point. So obviously we don't know as much as we will in a month from now about the best cards, but we do know something. I've played with some of these cards. I've enjoyed the expansion so far, but there are some cards that are really good, some cards with potential, and some cards that I just don't think are that good. And I just want to talk about the metagame here, looking at Limitless, where we get some tournament data, 10 tournaments so far, just under 1,000 players and 2,000 and just over 2,000 matches here. And yeah, let's just take a look. Obviously, we have a lot of decks that were good that are still good. So the first deck we'll talk about is a Mewtwo EX Gardevoir. First of all, I want to give a quick rundown on, if you don't know my thoughts on the previous metagame. I thought Pikachu was the best deck, and then Starmie EX, or like the water deck, Starmie EX, or Articuno EX, I guess would be that deck, though you can mix and match water combos. And then Mewtwo EX, and then Charizard EX, and that would include this build here. And then I thought that the other decks were a little weaker than that. Arbok Weezing and Ninetales Rapidash, the two 1-point decks, were both okay. Definitely the best 1-point decks. The 1-point decks were substantially behind the EXs. But within the context of this metagame, I think Mewtwo EX. I know Mewtwo EX has gotten a lot of new cards that have helped it, or at least one major new card. But looking at the decks, there are some different decks. Also, there's this deck called Mewtwo EX, Mew EX. In Limitless, there are less plays. Mewtwo EX with Gardevoir, as it's categorized here, is by far the most played deck so far. And I'd group these two decks together. If you take a look at a few different decks here, this one plays one Mew EX. The Mewtwo EX and Mew EX decks, I believe, all play two, but it's not that different. You do have Bunny Expeditioner. I personally think the better build, and obviously I'm not alone in thinking this because a lot of people have played this build, that the better build is the one with, well, this one doesn't have one Mew EX, but most of them do have one Mew EX as far as I've seen so far. This is the wrong deck. Let's see. This one has one EX, as I said. This one has one EX, and none of these, I believe, have Budding Expedition either. This one also has one EX, so we will have more data on exactly what's played in what decks. But regardless, Mewtwo EX with, you could play new Sigilyph. I think that is a good card here. I'll open up 3 different builds. We have this one with Budding Expeditioner, this one with one EX, and these two are pretty similar. You do see a blue. I haven't really played with blue so far. I haven't really played against it. It just hasn't really seemed super strong. Obviously, I do need to try it out at some point, but blue as a supporter is just okay. I think X speed, I don't even think is that good in the deck. I think Leaf is almost better. This is a little different. But I think Leaf is better than X speed, to be honest. It does depend on the situation. I don't think it's that much better, but I think you should be playing at least one Leaf. But I could see 2 Leafs, and then I don't think you necessarily need 2 X speed. It doesn't matter that much, to be honest. I don't think, because most of the time the Pokemon you want to be retreating would be the Ralt or the other. No, really Ralt. You want to be retreating Ralt into your Mewtwo EX, and Ralt just has one retreat, but also, which should mean X speed is better. And same thing with Curlia, right? There are times you would want to retreat Mewtwo EX into Gardevoir to give yourself more options to threaten more things and preserve energy on the board so that you can mix things up in the later game. That's why I really like Leaf, because ideally you get Mewtwo EX going turn 3, going second, and start attacking his side drive and just one-shotting things, and it's just really strong, right? But that's not always going to happen. Or maybe your opponent has some sort of counterplay. We'll talk about that a little bit with probably Celebi EX, like with Executor EX. But with Mewtwo EX, you just want to be able to get these big attacks, but you won't always get there. You might be a little behind, so in which case if you just side drive every turn, you'll end up losing because your opponent's gotten like a first hit into you or something like that. So in those cases, you want to switch things up and attack with Gardevoir, and retreating, losing any energy off your Mewtwo EX can be really bad because you can only accelerate generally 1 energy per turn and attach a second. So you need 2 energies on your Mewtwo EX to be threatening a side drive, and so Leaf will be the card that you need to use in that situation. And then in the early game, your 50 damage attack with Mewtwo EX is nice, and playing Leaf instead of X Speed could cause you to lose out on that. However, you are able to use Leaf really when you need to side drive because your professor's researches will be played in the early turns. Theoretically, you could draw it like turn 4 or something, or no, like turn 3, turn 4, and then you want to play that instead of your Leaf, and that could be bad, but that's unlikely. That could happen. It's just not super likely, especially because you'll be you have better control over like digging through your deck with Mythical Slab. Mythical Slab is I think the reason this deck is better. Mythical Slab allows you to look at the top card of your deck, and if it is a Psychic Pokemon, put it into your hand. If it's not, you just put it on the bottom of your deck, and so that allows you to get through your deck faster, get the cards you want. So you have Pokeball, Professor's Research, and Mythical Slab, which you're trying to throw down early to just get your Gardevoir lineup. Gardevoir is obviously very important. And then you have the new Sigilyph. I think the new Sigilyph is a very solid card. You draw 1 for 1 Psychic, can do 10. You have 80 HP, have 1 Retreat. So very solid stats. You're not like broken, but pretty solid. And the 10 like chip damage, poke damage can be useful. It's not that useful. It's not what you're playing this card for, but the drawing is really nice. I've been a big fan of Meowth within this deck. Sigilyph isn't a card that I don't think is being played by a lot of people, and it's kind of hard to fit in if you're playing Mew EX, but I do think it is a card worth playing. And then it is also a Pokemon you can hit off of Mythical Slab. You can also hit Mew EX off of Mythical Slab. Mew EX is a card that if you don't know what it does, it copies your opponent's active for 3 colorless, which it doesn't matter between colorless and not colorless in Mew EX. However, within this or within Mewtwo EX, however, it is 1 less energy, so it's just a cheaper Mewtwo. It's cheaper than Mewtwo EX, and in the mirror, which Mewtwo EX is being played a lot, then though it's not being played, at least in my experience, as the most played deck. The most played deck, from what I've been seeing, is like Celebi EX superior by like a lot. Probably 2/3 of my matches are against this deck, and I've played a decent amount of matches since the set came out. But regardless, Mewtwo EX is a deck I've been seeing a lot as well. And then in that matchup, Mew EX is almost just like a cheaper Mewtwo EX. It's not exactly because it's only a cheaper Mewtwo EX if you're hitting into Mewtwo EX, but in that situation, it's really good. Mew EX is also decent against Celebi EX as it's an attacker that, again, it's cheaper, and it can also build with energies. One thing that I think is great about Celebi EX is that if a game happens to drag on for whatever reason, you're not like retreating every turn off all your energy, then you can repeatedly attach extra energy and get value off of that. But with Gardevoir, you actually could actually be accelerating 3 energies per turn, or attaching 3 energies per turn, I should say. And in that situation, then you're going to be able to go and be doing an average of 75 more damage every single turn, which is a lot. Obviously, it's not exactly 75, but Gardevoir plus UEX against Celebi EX can be scary for them to deal with. There's obviously a luck element there with just how things end up panning out, but this is a very solid combo against a lot of the top decks. Not all the top decks, but it is quite strong. And then playing it with 2 copies of Mew EX and Bunny Expeditioner. I haven't actually played this. I only have 1 Mew EX so far, but I played against it. I played against it a few times, and I've not been super impressed by it. Buddy Expeditioner scoops up your active Mew EX from the active, and it returns it to your hand, which you can. It's like a switch and a heal. That's the idea. The big thing is the healing there, though, and the healing is because the switch doesn't really matter because you could just retreat anyways. And also you're losing the energy, all of it with Bunny Expeditioner, but the healing is okay. Mew EX isn't particularly tanky. It's not like the squishiest Pokemon in the game, and I mean, being a 2-point Pokemon, it does have more HP than, I mean, like your Gardevoir, for example, or any of your single point Pokemon here, but it's still not a Pokemon you want to be relying to tank, and then also it's not a consistent main attacker. Your opponent could send up like a Ralts or a Kirlia or even like a Gardevoir, and you're not really able to do much to them with Mew EX. Yes, you have Mewtwo EX behind that, but you can't really be focusing on both Mew EX and Mewtwo EX. You need to just choose one to get energy on initially, especially if you're attacking with the Mew EX, you're accelerating to that with the Gardevoir. You can't accelerate anywhere else other than your active, so you can be manually attaching to your Mewtwo EX, but that might be behind and not have enough energy by the time you need it. So I think the Mew EX, double Mew EX Bunny Expeditioner package is not great. I would not recommend playing Bunny Expeditioner within Mewtwo EX decks. You could, if you want, to like try out some healing things, which can be good against something like, say, Executor EX. I mean, healing can be really strong, but ultimately, I don't think that Bunny Expeditioner is the card I'd play. You could play a second UEX. I don't think you really want to play it down, though it's not a terrible attacker. And so it's a decent, like, it's cheaper. One thing that it does allow you to do is turn three going first, because normally you can only attack with Mewtwo EX as a big attack, turn three going second. But with Mew EX with a turn three Gardevoir, then your third turn going first would allow you to attack with Genome Hacking, which is earlier than Side Drive. Um, so that's like kind of cool, but it's obviously not super consistent. You don't know exactly what you'll be going up against, but theoretically you could get like a massive KO on a Mewtwo EX or something. And so it's pretty easy to set up, and it's a decent card. I definitely recommend one copy in Mewtwo EX. You could play a second one for like consistency, but I wouldn't. But the one VUEX is the definite edition, and this list doesn't even play Mythical Slab, which really surprises me. I haven't really been looking at lists too much for the build with Mewtwo EX and Mew EX, but Mythical Slab this list plays Mythical Slab, and this one plays one. You are adding in like extra stuff to your deck. This one plays two Budding Expeditioners, really into that tankiness aspect. But I would highly recommend two Mythical Slab in a Gardevoir deck. It just increases your consistency a lot. It's it's not necessarily as good as Pokeball, but it's pretty good. People were asking for a way to get your evolutions, and Mythical Slab gets them for Psychic, kind of. So it's a very, very good card. Then we have Celebi EX Superior. Honestly, this deck plays pretty similarly to Mewtwo EX in its game plan. I compare Mewtwo EX and Charizard EX to each other a lot, and they are similar, but Celebi EX and Gardevoir EX are even more similar. You have the Superior filling a very similar role to the Mewtwo EX and Celebi EX filling, no, sorry, Superior filling role, similar role to Gardevoir, and Celebi EX filling a similar role to Mewtwo EX. And then this is the list I played, or one of the lists I played. It plays like these two executors, which is kind of a weird feel to it. A normal list. Okay, this person also did it, though they might have just been copying that. Okay, looks like a lot of them are playing the executor. I did not like this executor specifically. Theoretically, maybe I was just seeing the wrong things, but I just want like the executor, the new baby executor, I just didn't find very strong. I would just play a list looking like, yeah, these two lists are very similar. The one plays a Sabrina, the one plays a red card, but okay, so I'd play a list like this. That's not the one, the one without the red card. So I'd play, yeah, a list like this, which is very simplified, and the idea is you just go ahead and use Celebi EX's Powerful Bloom, where you flip a coin for each energy attached to it, not energy like physical energy, but Superior doubles your energy. So the idea is turn three. Again, you can go do turn three going first, which is quite nice. So then you'll be hitting 150 on. No, you'll be hitting 100 on average. So you go first, you obviously don't attach, you play Snivy, and you could play Celebi. And then turn two, you evolve into Servine and attach to Celebi EX. Turn three, evolve into Superior, attach again to Celebi EX and have that in the active spot. Then be swinging for. Well, you have 4 on Gion, so anywhere between 0 and 200, leaning towards that like 100 element of damage. You could be hitting 150, which would be like theoretically really nice. You could be hitting as low as 50 or 0, I guess. But if that gets going, you're in a very strong position. Your opponent will struggle to counter that. And then also Celebi EX can power up in one turn to be doing something, an average of 50. So let's say you have Superior up and no no energy on Celebi, then you attach once. So one turn you'll be doing 50, and then after two turns you'll have 4 energy on, so you'll be doing 100. Then 3 turns you'll have 6 energy, and then you'll be averaging 150. However, turn 3 going second, you can be hitting 150 because you can attach each of the first 3 turns and then have Superior. Of course, that's only if everything goes according to plan. So turn 3 going second, you have the same average damage as Mewtwo EX, and then turn 2 going second, you also have the same average damage as Mewtwo EX, which is the 50, and then turn 3 going first, you are hitting more than Mewtwo EX would be hitting, but which is nice, but you do have the inconsistencies, right? So, and then this is all weird saying that you set up your superior, you don't have mythical slab. So I think these decks are decently comparable. Erica isn't like a great supporter in the deck either. I mean, it's okay. You can heal a bunch with this deck, but Cell EX, again, just like Mew EX, is not that tanky. And yeah, I was gonna say it has a worse weakness, but that's probably not true. Regardless, these are very similar decks, except Celebi EX can work without Mewtwo EX a little bit better, I think, because you don't discard when you do big damage with Powerful Loom, which is really meaningful. Celebi EX is, as I said, all over the ladder, or I don't know if it's a ladder, they're just like playing the game. And as I've seen it so much, I played it some. It's pretty fun. It's a very fun deck. I think that's why people are playing a lot, and it's quite strong as well. Celebi EX is kind of sketchy in terms of its like coin flip element, but it is a very strong card. In terms of playing Executor EX, I would not recommend this Baby Executor, the new one, which can do for 480, 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active. You really need Superior to be attacking with it, and in that case, it's okay. Maybe I'm undervaluing this. This is good against like Pikachu EX and Articuno EX as well. If they have 3 energies attached, then you'll be one-shotting them. So that's very good there, but you need a basic, which is a 1 of, a stage 1, which is also a 1 of, and then a stage 2, which is you have a 2/2/2 line there. So that's like not great, right? In terms of consistency, it's something you could set up, and ultimately it might be a good card. I do need to play around with it a little more, but I haven't found it super strong. And then Executor EX is what I have been using a little more. And there's the Executor EX Celebi EX deck build, which is pretty interesting. With this one plays Superior. I've seen some without Superior as well. This one plays the Baby Execute. I don't actually have this card, so I haven't played that. I think it adds consistency to the deck and opens up some 1 point, like a 1 point attacker if your first Execute goes down or something. There are reasons to play this card, but Executor EX is obviously stronger here. And you could play it with Superior. Losing out on Superior loses out on a lot of value of Celebi EX, and in that situation, you're relying on your Executor EX to tank a lot. Then Erica gets a lot of value here as you try to tank the Executor EX, which is decent against Celebi EX, where they're not going to be consistently knocking you out even after a couple of hits. And then you also have the you could use like Potion and Erica to burst a bunch of healing onto the board onto your Executor EX, which is a decently tanky Pokemon. 30 more HP, then Celebi EX here, and only 1 energy, and then you're just going to be manually attaching to Celebi EX and not getting any like energy acceleration or energy doubling from the Superior. You can play it with Superior, but again, that's a lot of stuff going on. And you want to be careful, though the deck does have deck space. Like a lot of these cards are just you have Professor's Research, which you need Pokeball, and then you need some other like the other trainers are all kind of like a little bit techy. They're not they all are good value certainly, but you need to be a little bit careful of like actually not careful, but you need to make sure you draw the cards that are important, which is the Superior line. And if you don't draw the Superior line with Celebi EX, Celebi EX Focusless, not necessarily one with Executor EX, and that's really bad. With the Executor EX, you could buy time in the early game with the Executor EX as well, which is certainly something that's pretty strong. Overall, Celebi EX I think is a solid deck. It's a top tier deck. Is it the best deck? I don't think so. I do believe that it is Mewtwo EX with Gardevoir with a list very similar to this. So you would have the one Mew EX, definitely play 2 Mythical Slab, definitely play a Leaf, and obviously Mewtwo EX and Gardevoir, and like Research and Pokeball. I don't think those are debatable, and an X Speed probably. And then like Sabrina's very good. Giovanni's certainly strong. It's like value is kind of weird with genome hacking, but yeah, you can change out some of the trainers a little bit. You can even add in a Sigilyph. I actually don't hate that card, but I don't love it either. It causes some bench space issues, but it is like it takes up an energy. There are issues with Sigilyph, but I think it is a solid card. Then we have the top single point deck in the game right now, which is Scolipede. Well, okay, it's the most played single point deck in the game right now, which is Scolipede Weezing, which I think these are regular tournaments. Theoretically, sometimes these 1 point Pokemon lose out on value, or no, gain value. Like they show more than they are actually worth if there are alternate format tournaments. I played this deck, although I don't have the new Tauros. Obviously, the set's very new. I don't have all the cards. The Tauros is a cool card that can threaten some Pokemon, but can't necessarily do enough of what you're looking, enough damage. You have the Weezing combo here to allow you to one-shot UEX, though you shouldn't have too much of an issue with UEX, but also to one-shot Celebi EX as well. But Weezing obviously poisons if it's in the active, and then you can scoop it up with Koga, and you can do 30 for 1 darkness. And you also have the new Coughing, which you don't play because it's bad. But you have Scolipede, and Venipede, and Whirlipede. Whirlipede 20 for 1 darkness on a stage 1, and poison. This is solid to attack with if you don't have Weezing. However, the big issue is that you are going to leave it in the active, and it might get knocked out, but hopefully it doesn't. And in the early turns, there's a good chance it won't. And then you have Scolipede, and you are able to attack with Venoshock for 2 on this stage 2, and you do 120. You do 70 base, which is okay. You definitely will be using this attack for that value sometimes, but then you want to be looking to do 120 if your points active is poisoned, which with Weezing bumps you up to 130, which is meaningful on, as I said, Celebi. In this case, not Mew EX because you're just one-shotting it still, and you're like one-shotting Pikachu EX with this value, but doing extra damage with the poison is nice, and so you're able to do very solid damage on a stage 2. You're kind of looking at that Koga combo into the Scolipede if you're not using Poison Sting, which, as I said, Poison Sting can be sketchy. You're a deck that actually would probably want to go first because you're able to get off the Poison Sting, but that is a little sketchy. Your opponent won't have a turn to evolve yet, so they might just evolve out of Poison Sting, which is somewhat common. But then you're able to go get the Venoshock turn 3, the Weezing Tackle turn 2, different things, and also you're a deck which obviously there's no Arbok in this list. It's like the Weezing was a very good card before, one of the best single point Pokemon, but it also didn't have like a super strong partner. You had the Arbok. This hits way more damage than the Arbok. Instead of trapping stuff and knocking it out over 2 turns, it just knocks it out immediately. Though it is a stage 2, the Scolipede. But then it's also like Muck for that big one-shotting potential. It combines the upside of both of those cards into one card with even more HP, which is really nice. So you can actually tank even more than you can with the Weezing, which Weezing is obviously, it's like HP is a little high for a stage 1, but it's not a super. Is it high for a stage 1? I think it is, but I'm not actually sure. But Scolipede's HP is higher than Weezing. It's not, again, super high for stage 2, but it is a card that can tank and can almost like buy you turns. It's a very strong attacker. It's not an insane attacker. I think Scolipede is over, like, new decks tend to get overplayed. The top 4 decks are all new. Mewtwo EX Gardevoir is not necessarily new, but obviously it plays a notable amount of new cards. Then you have Pikachu EX with Zebstrika, and this deck is still good. Yeah, it does have a few new cards you could put in. You have Dedenne, which you can play. You have Blue, which again is a solid value card. Also Leaf is only really good in like a few different decks. It's good in Mewtwo, which I think it's quite good there. You could play it in Scolipede as well because in Scolipede Weezing because you have higher retreat cost, so it's good there, and it's good in just like the higher retreat decks. Obviously, it's good in exactly what you think it would be good in bad in everything else. Then you have, but the Dedenne can paralyze on a coin flip here, and it does 10 for 1. It's a solid 1 energy attacker, and yeah, I think it's definitely one that is pretty decent. Not too much to say about Pikachu EX, not at least this build, not really gaining too much. So it is a card that it's a deck that isn't probably moving up in the meta. It might be getting passed up by Mewtwo EX here. The other deck that I considered very good was the Water deck, and the Water deck does not really have much going for it at all to help it out. You have Pikachu EX with a Raichu though. And we also see the Electabuzz here, which has synergy with Lieutenant Surge. Though I'm not sure exactly how consistent this is with like Lieutenant Surge and the different combos, but Raichu looks really cool. I mean, it's been good for this Raichu. And you do have the new Raichu. I don't think you'd play it, but it does offer some fun options. We got the Electabuzz 40 Snipe, and the Pikachu, which I've talked up a lot, and I think it's a pretty good card for 1 Lightning. It's 10 for each of your bench Pokemon, so it can be doing 30. I definitely think this is a pretty solid attacker here. The Pikachu, the basic, as it's efficient for just 1 energy here, doing more than Zapdos EX or Dedenne. Though Dedenne's paralysis can be really nice, but you really do need to get heads, obviously, otherwise it's not good. And yeah, obviously Pikachu EX still very solid, can put up a pretty good fight against the other decks. I haven't been playing Pikachu EX too much recently. I do want to play it with some of the old build, or with some of the new builds and some of the old builds, and just kind of mix it up. We have Arcanine EX and Charizard EX paired with Moltres EX, and we do see Mew EX in these lists here. We see a Chatot here to power up to get your Charizard EX. I do think Chatot with Mimic is pretty strong, though. Um, it's definitely an interesting card. You can lose value if your opponent plays around it. These are open decklist tournaments as well. So, well, I don't know if they all are, but they mostly are generally. And so Chata is a card your opponent will see and be like, oh, maybe I should tone or just like trim my hand down. But regardless, you have the Moltres EX with the attackers, and Mew EX is a nice slot into the decks because you just accelerate to your Arcanine EX and just exclusively accelerate to it. Don't attach from hand, and then you attach from hand to Mew EX. You even see a Budding Expedition. Again, I'm not a massive fan of this card. But Fire is good for a few different reasons. Oh, and then Ninetales Rapidash, the other Fire deck, and obviously, well, no, there's really one reason, which is Celebi Celebi with Superior, maybe Executor EX as well, but that's less common. But with these decks, this one plays the new Rapidash, 2 of it. This one also plays 2 of the new Rapidash. This one plays the 1-1 split. Ultimately, their new Rapidash, I mean, it's a coin flip card, and it's a card that is you're not going to get consistent value off of, though it does do more damage than Ninetales on a heads, so it is quite strong. Ninetales, I do think is better than Rapidash. I haven't really, I don't know, how good this card is. Oh, the Ponyta is better. It is a coin flip, but it is on average better, and really practically it is better as well here. And so I think the Ponyta is a solid addition. Rapidash is solid edition. You can get value out of blue, and I don't think blue's that bad for you because I don't think too many other people are playing it. Ninetales Rapidash, though, is definitely a really solid deck against grass, which is, as I said, super popular in their metagame right now, but not necessarily the strongest deck all over. You might be relying on lucky coin flips with Rapidash or Ponyta. Probably not Ponyta, more so Rapidash. And then also your opponent not setting up, right? That's true for a lot of single point decks. Like Scolipede Weezing can take big knockouts, and Scolipede Weezing also has Darkness, right? So that's good against the other top deck, the Mewtwo EX deck, though. I do believe that these decks are overplayed because they are new and the data is quite fresh. Then you have Water. I don't really know. So we got Starmie EX, Articuno EX, and this list is playing Vaporeon. I'm not sure exactly how good Vaporeon is. I've played against it, and I don't remember if I played with it, but I've definitely played against it a good few times, and it's like not done anything. I don't think I've seen someone use Vaporeon's ability literally ever because it's only useful if you set up multiple attackers and get energy on the board for the first attacker and not the second attacker. So it's in pretty niche situations and it's taking up multiple slots in your deck. We see these lists both playing just a 1-2 Vaporeon because it takes up deck slots, it takes up bench slots, and it's okay, right? It's good in certain situations, but only certain ones. I think it's pretty good with Starmie EX because of the free retreat and the more expensive attack cost. You also see, well, it's not that expensive, but it is multiple energies. And then you have a different attack with Articuno EX, which is more expensive even than that. So you can pivot into that, and you do have Leaf as well, which I think opens up options with Articuno EX. I do like that card in this deck, though I don't necessarily love it. This list plays nothing new. The deck's pretty, it's a pretty good deck. We see Mew EX, everything I said about energy acceleration within Charizard EX, or I guess Arcanine EX as well, to from the Moltres EX applies to Mew EX, where you have a Misty deck. Accelerate energies to the Starmie EX and Articuno EXs. These attackers are faster and a little less energy hungry and easier to set up. And then you can also get the energy on the Mew EX by manually attaching. We see a Tauros here as well, which is kind of interesting. And now that we have more cards, I mean, this was something that was true before, but obviously you should play decks how you like them and not just, there isn't really a right answer. People aren't playing perfect Pokemon. Your opponent's not playing perfect Pokemon. You're not. I'm not. No one is, especially at this point with a new game. And as time goes on, that'll stay the same as well. People will still be making mistakes. So play decks how you want. There's no exactly right answer, but I don't like Budding Expeditioner. That's really where this is going. So yeah, I would not play that in I could see you playing it. If you're playing 2 Mew EX, I could see you playing that. If you want to if you really like attack with Mew EX, playing Expeditioner is decent. But I would not play it in a Starmie EX. Gyarados EX, Articuno EX. This deck is definitely what on earth? Okay, this is limitless, obviously. Apparently, there's another deck called Ninetales Rapidash. So this one is with the old no, what? Okay, I have no idea what this. So this one plays the old Rapidash, I guess is the idea here. There's also new Magmar, which you could play, but it's kind of sketchy on this deck. But regardless, we have a few Gyarados EX, Articuno EX decks. You can also play it with Starmie EX or Vaporeon, and I'll open up actually one of each of these lists. Keep in mind that we are getting, there aren't a ton of people who have played these decks, so these decks might not necessarily be the strongest, or they could be the strongest. It's hard to find out and know that right away, but we have a few different lists here, and we do see Vaporeon in some of these, and in most of them actually. Vaporeon is definitely a card that's an interesting one. I think it takes up a lot of deck space, but it is solid with Gyarados EX to go from one Gyarados EX to the next. Though you do need to retreat it out, probably, which is kind of awkward, or to go from Starmie EX into Gyarados EX, which is pretty strong. Articuno EX with Gyarados EX, the idea is you just Misty, get that fast Articuno EX, and then power up a really beefy Gyarados EX, and you can do that. And with just Gyarados EX Vaporeon, you can have a bit more versatility here to be able to do what you need to do easier and hide in the early game, poke with whatever, with I guess Eevees and Vaporeons, and then be able to pivot into the Gyarados EX while still maintaining energies on and just kind of keep energies on the board. And that's what Vaporeon is good at doing. And it also is good with different attackers. Ultimately, if you're playing with it with only one attacker, I think you might lose. Like I'd play at least one Articuno EX if you're playing Vaporeon. That's something I would recommend. Well, if you're playing in this deck, you're playing Starmie EX and Gyarados EX, but I'd recommend at least 2 different attackers to give you some different options to really fully get good value out of Vaporeon. Vaporeon's a card I want to play with some. I haven't really played too much water. It's kind of reliant on Misty. We only see one Misty here. Theoretically, going second, you could Starmie EX and on turn 2. And then on turn 3, you could pop the Misty and get the Gyarados, or maybe even turn 4. But you don't really want to be waiting 4 turns. But if your opponent isn't setting up so well, Vaporeon can help you through it. In that sense, it is a win more card, which a win more card is generally not it's not that bad. But a win more would be a card that says oh, you're already in the advantageous position. You'll win by stop your opponent from taking any points at all, or taking points faster, or doing extra damage beyond what you need to do. So Starmie EX is a very good card, right? It's a very efficient Pokemon. And Gyarados EX is like a sledgehammer, but it's very expensive. So Vaporeon does bridge the gap there, which is quite useful there. And playing with Articuno EX, as I said, you can go in with an attacker, and these are expensive attackers, and then pivot with Leaf into another expensive attacker that now has a fresh HP pool and is able to just hit really hard. Or Articuno EX is a little weaker, but it's cheaper as well, so it's easier to get going. Overall, though, I think Water is a fun type. I do like Vaporeon as a card, as a fun card. I don't think it's a great card. I think I'm a little below consensus on that card, though I don't think it's terrible. As a 1-point Pokemon, I mean, it's certainly solid. There's also Pidgeot EX Druddigon, or just various different decks with Druddigon. I think it's an okay card. It's a pretty interesting card that I played against a few times. I found it a little weird to play against, and when you hit into it, you take damage, which is kind of weird, but kind of cool, kind of scary. I don't know. I just really am excited to experience playing with and against that deck some more. It's kind of cool, kind of weird, to be honest. And Aerodactyl EX is definitely a card that I'm keeping an eye out for as well. I think that's an okay EX there. Not a super strong one, and I think it'll need to wait a set or two till it becomes good. We'll see. I don't know what's in the next sets. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me down below what you think the best decks are and what decks are overrated. But consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, joining the channel as well. But I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.